entice to work for this people. I'm telling you, we do not have a response to that. And I find that to be inadequate. I think we should have a response to that. I think we should do the same thing. Here are our candidates. These are good people. They look good. They look good on the pictures. They look good. At least they look good, you know? So, and they can recognize the names. Of course, you see the yard signs, but I don't know. I mean, I think that when something on your door like that is very, is effective.
It's more effective.
I think so.
Even if it's just bullet points.
Yeah, and bullet points is
Those
good.
are probably best.
No, we have the bullet
short
points.
to point.
No, we do have the bullet points. We have the bullet points, but bullet points are just the Republican Party, this and that. This is not gonna work in our area because we have 95% Democrats. So if you say Republican bullet points, they probably won't read it. They probably won't even read it. Yeah. But if you see here are the candidates and they look at the pictures draws their attention.
That is a good point. Pictures do make a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Keep working on that. I've been extremely busy. I hosted 2 election integrity training seminars in my home, and RNC came in and did it. But what I have been doing, I've had meet and greets. I have 3 of them. I was asked if I wanted a list of the precinct chairman in Bear County. I already have that, but my point is I don't want to invite the precinct chairman. They know who's running as Republicans. I was looking for neighborhood people who don't know who to vote for. And that's what we all should be doing, is bringing in new people, not the same people at the same meetings. It's just meetings. I hate meetings. They're a waste of time unless we're doing something. So hopefully y'all will go home energized to do a little bit more, whatever you can do. And then hi. The question then? Okay. Unless we're informed, we can't bring other people in. We need to, as we've said, the masses are uneducated on this. They're very uninformed. So it's up to us. And I've got that one slide with sources where you can go to learn on the issues. Because if we speak up on the issues, we can reach people. What are the issues? Education's horrible. Well, are you for school choice? That's a great issue. The price of gas again. And it's going down, but it's not enough. I'll be happy when it's 50 cents a gallon. So I might go to my grave.
Anyway, on that topic you mentioned, were they outreaching to the county, or did y'all request them?
I've been requesting this.
Okay, so you requested.
It's finally going to happen.
Okay.
That's great. Very good. So now we have Howard. Howard has these big ideas, and they're great ideas. So he's going to present his program to us.
Well, you may recall in the last meeting I made an offhand remark about high school students and they were a demographic we weren't really talking about. And so since then I've done a little research and we got chairs. So I guess. So, let's see, target groups, active students. Anyway, you can see, I'm not going to talk, I've got a whole speaking presentation there. But we can just go down the subjects. What would we do? Republican Party needs, we need some kind of program to reach out to these high school students. We don't have one now. The party sponsors. In my research, people tell me about high school Republicans of Texas, the Young Americans for Freedom, Young Americans for Farms, Teenage Republicans of Texas. You know, I can't find many, if any, active chapters in most of these churches. So people say, well, yeah, I worked with the High School Republicans of Texas at Delaware High School. That was 4 years ago. They graduated, there's nobody replaced them. That's the problem. Continuity is the problem if there ever was a chapter. So why would we do that? We all know, you know, these kids are they turn 18 their senior year, and they're being recruited on campus either by their government teacher, who may or may not be little, mostly kids, and then they come into our polling places and they vote straight Democrat, and I think the numbers say that we're just being overwhelmed by these straight Democrat teenage votes. And like Rush used to say, mine's full of mush, you know. I mean, they don't know. They're running from the peer pressure, from pressure at school, and they come from conservative families, but there's a lot of pressure on these kids, and they're being turned. So where would we do this? I think we have to focus, you know, on the major metropolitan areas to get the biggest bang for the buck. You know, Cheryl's from Lavaca County, and they had a high school program, and similar story. Kid graduated, they need to restart. But and that's a few votes. But Harris County has 50 high schools with enrollments of over 2,000 students. If you can get a program to cover Harris County, now you might get 1,000 kids or 2,000. I don't know how many. San Antonio, same way. Dallas County, Tarrant County. And then they got the outlying counties like Denton, Collin County, around Harris County, you got Montgomery County, and Fort Bend County. All very metropolitan, a lot of them pretty diverse, you know, and all controlled by the Democrats, except I think Tarrant County took theirs back. So they control their county more than Harris County does. So I've got a list of the groups that I've reached out to, but the most active one seems to be Turning Point. Now, Turning Point, you see Charlie Kirk on television and everything. He's saying, you know, he pretty much focuses on high school and college. They got a lot of college campus chapters. And that's fine, except I've learned that now they've branched out and expanded to the high school campus. In Texas, they've divided Texas into two halves. There's a north half and a southern half. I've spoken at length with the southern field rep, and I've got some information in there about that. I haven't been able to get a hold of the North Texas, from the north part of Texas. But in the south, they have 26 active high school chapters. Now, that's a pretty good start. Of course, most of them are not in, you know, Center City, Houston. They're in outlying counties, or they're in more affluent sort of high schools. So, need to talk about that. So, and we need to talk about what our relationship would be to any kind of program. Do we want to work with affiliate groups like Turning Point or Young Americans for Freedom or Young Conservatives of Texas? Do we want to work with them, or do we want our own group? That's what we have to talk about. Attitudes, I think parents are concerned. Assumptions that kids are being bombarded, you know, with liberal messages. Our objective, I think, needs to be to facilitate the establishment of conservative support groups. I don't know how we do that, except I have some suggestions, and I'd be interested in, you know, any ideas you guys might have. What are the resources? We've got a number of precinct chairs, especially in the metropolitan areas. Most of our counties, I think, are 30 to 50% occupied. Our precinct chairs are 30 to 50% occupied. We can do a better job there. But I'll show you a list of how many precinct chairs we have associated with every high school in Harris County, which is the same. So we have to figure out what the first steps would be, what our goals would be, and what is the strategy. So I've written down my idea, what we can do to develop a plan, find conservative families, hold recruiting meetings, and begin holding meetings in September. I think our goal should be to increase the presence of Republican, conservative type clubs in an additional incremental number of high schools between now and September. Typically, these clubs organize and meet and set up, for the fall semester. And I think we need to somehow be ahead of that game. And that means we have to start right now. And where are we going to have our recruiting drives? Who are we going to help recruit? How are we going to do that? So, page 1C is all the people I've talked to. I've talked to a lot of people on SREC, people that said that they had history with high school clubs, like Jill Glover back there. I'm making all sorts of promises to us. And some have had more or less experience. Karen Marshall is she from San Antonio?
Yes, she is.
Yeah. She's been very active in the high school groups, and so she's a good springboard. But she's a little discouraged because of the pushback that she's getting on high school. We need to figure out a way to help fight, the pushback that the administrations give. I know. Just incidentally, last weekend I went to a high school fundraiser for a private Lutheran school, Concordia Lutheran in Tomball, Texas. And they have a group of kids who shoot trap and ski and sporting clays. And that's their annual fundraiser. And they just had a fundraiser, 188 high school kids shot in this sporting clays. They raised $75,000 for Concordia Lutheran. And, sporting clays, shooting competitions, the shooting range competitions, just think outside the box. What kind of events could we organize that would be consistent with Second Amendment rights, free speech, we could have debating contests, there's any number of competitions that we could do to engage the members of these clubs, but it was just an eye-opener to me to go and see these kids. 188 of them shot in the morning, and then in the afternoon, adults and kids shot. Over 200 people shot. They raised $75,000 in one day.
That's amazing.
I think that can be done in any county in Texas, especially the metropolitan counties. I know. What county was that down there, just south of, kind of down on the coast?
I think you've misidentified me.
What was her name? Bonnie, somebody that put together, what? I can't remember. But anyway, even a small county can do and has used it for fundraisers. So, that's just one idea. If you look at page 2A, I've got 3 or 4 pages there. This was my first idea. 2 years ago, when we had a change in our county chair, I said, look, we've got to raise money at the Lincoln Lake. Why don't here's a list of all the high schools in Harris County and have enrollments. Well, this is all of them, but we could focus on all the enrollments. You can see the enrollments listed there. All the ones over 2,000. You ought to be able to find a boy and a girl out of each one of those high schools. Recruit them through their parents or whatever, and invite them to the Lincoln Reagan. Find a donor. And invite 100 kids to your Lincoln Reagan, sit them over at tables, have a donor pay $25,000 for it, and announce them as the future of the party. I think I haven't been able to pull that off yet, but that's just we're not even recognizing them, much less supporting them. So that will go a long way. At your fundraisers, bring the kids, let them work the booths and whatever. Just for organization. So if you look at page 3A, this is the field director for Turning Point. She's got an interesting story. She was the president of Turning Point USA on the campus at TSU in San Marcos. They were trying to kick Turning Point off campus, Troy has a video of her interview, but he's not here to play it, but I've given you the link on the next page. You can go look at that link, or you can just Google her name and you can find it. What happened to her was she made her speech catcalls and insults, you know, she could barely get started. She soldiered through, she made her speech, and then as she was leaving, you know, cussing and spitting, it was just totally denigrating. I don't know how. So, Turning Point saw this, and guess what did they do? They hired her to be the field rep. So she's a very energetic and enthusiastic kid, and you know, whether we work through them or follow a model or, you know, try to recruit people the same way they recruit people, I don't know, but it's just an interesting information point for us to consider as we try to reach out to these young people. And John Beckmeyer's back there, and I see him nodding, yes, Howard, yes, that's a great thing.
No, we were at Turning Point this past weekend,
Uh-huh.
and anything you can look at, they're doing. I mean, they're doing a good job reaching out to students all the way down.
As I said, they have 26 high school chapters just in their southern region. And they probably have an equal number in North Texas. So, you know, like whether we work with them or just feed them information or follow their template, you know, that's something I think as a party we need to figure out what to do. If you want to know where their page 3C, if there are chapters.
Quick question, is this young lady a high school student?
No, she was college. She's college. I don't know if she actually graduated from TSU. I think she's 25 or so.
Oh, okay. Well, I read high school student outreach, okay.
Yeah, but she, you know, she's sort of the mentor, and, you know. So I told her, look, if you need resources recruiting, here's something we can do. Look at page 4A. This is something I just did in Harris County. We've got the database to do it because it's Harris County that has provided database support virtually to every county in Texas through Dan Meyer's efforts on county chair training. There used to be an APAC program, not sure what it was, but that information is still available in most of your counties. If we can get the information that we would need to provide this would be a complete list of your precinct chairs and their contact information. So what I've done here, this list you can see, it's 4 pages long. It's every high school, regardless of student body enrollment. And the names, address, and all that, student body enrollment, percentage Republican vote, and we identify the precinct chair. So now, Turning Point or our representative, whatever, can go to Nicole Elder, who's the precinct chair of Bel Air High School, ask them what they're doing, how do they need help, all that sort of thing. One thing they ask for is, you know, hey, do you have any donors that could buy the pieces for our meeting, that sort of thing. So maybe that's all we can do is help support them, find donors in these counties to make, you know, make the medicine go down.
And Howard, I really wouldn't discount the importance of doing things like that, especially, I mean, for younger people love to eat. And it's kind of like, you know, you give them food and they will come. And so I think that's a really great way to help engage them and support them and begin building those relationships.
I think that's the least we can do if we can just find, the money, you know.
Absolutely.
They need speakers. This has shocked me.
Yeah.
These Turning Point high schools meet twice a month.
Wow.
I have meetings in my precinct, outreach to the voters, and I started doing that in January. It's killing me to find, you know, speakers and agendas and put that whole thing together just once a month.
Right.
And I can't imagine, you know, but I think, you know, if we could, you know, sort of evaluate what would a good curriculum be, you know? I mean, you've got, what's his name, PragerU.
Yes.
He's got 200-300 videos. You could use it, you know, the first 15 minutes or the middle 15 minutes or whatever, you know, that could be one. You know, you could bring an elected official in to talk, you know, you could bring somebody in to talk about the election process, you know, in October, November, December, for the primaries. What is a primary, you know, stuff like that. Recruit them to, in Harris County, we pay high school students $200-300 just for one day, election day support, you know, bringing them for early voting. That's a lot of money, you know, that's $2,000-3,000 per kid. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we can do to get them involved, but just inviting them to your caucus meeting, you know, or to a county executive committee meeting, or, you know, meet the candidates, and Maggie's, meet the candidates thing, you know. Let's, you know, just get them involved. I can do this in any county, the people we have in Harris County, if we just have the precinct chair information, okay? Okay, so, and that doesn't take a lot of time, it doesn't cost any money, yeah.
The columns that are labeled registered voters, registered voters in what?
In that high school? In that precinct.
Oh, the precinct,
Yeah.
Okay.
not at the high school.
I'm sorry, registered voters, yeah, that's registered voters in that precinct, I think. No, that's not right.
In the school district, maybe?
Well, I don't know. It's inconsistent, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah, okay.
So that's
Well,
one of my questions.
yeah.
Is it gonna end work on determining how many high school kids are actually registered to vote and how many aren't actually voting? So we know what's the target.
Well, that's not that hard to find out. Good. For all of SD 18, I get a list of all the voters. And I can take that and I can sort it by anybody under 20 years old. So maybe anybody under 19 years old. That should tell you all high school. Nobody's asked me the question before, but yeah, I mean,
Wouldn't that be of interest? I mean, if you go to, Stratford High
if it's
School.
of interest to you, Roman,
I'm saying there's
I
five.
don't have SD 17 done,
Yeah.
but I can do it for SD 18, okay?
But if you got a high school with 2 kids registered,
You can call us along and you can ask, in SD 18,
I'm asking you.
asking for a report, SD 18, all the voters 18 years, 18 and 19-year-olds.
Yeah, the
Then you get a report.
reason I'm asking, I'm just sitting here thinking, turning point started with college. You had a lot bigger group, you know, they're all
Yeah.
of age. There must be some logic to why they did that. So that when they form an organization, they're gonna have an opportunity to attract people.
Well, the reason I came up with this idea of inviting high school students to Lincoln Reagan was because I come young Republicans of Texas in Harris County. And in Harris County, the executive director of Young Republicans of Texas teaches at Rice University. And I asked him, I said, what are you guys doing for the young people, you know? And basically, their stated objective, whether they're actually doing it or not, is, well, we want to make sure that when they leave high school, and one of the things of their parents, that when they get to college, they've got a support group, that there's a Republican club they can go to, you know, that there's a peer group that they can socialize with. So, I don't know how successful they are. I think they've got a lot more college campuses, I think, than they do high school, but there are a lot more high schools than college.
Howard, I just texted the lady that was our sponsor for our high school group. And she's a school teacher at one of the private schools in Milwaukee County, and she said that they got no help from high school Republicans in Texas, none. So, and that's concerning. So maybe this turning point is a better idea to try to follow up on.
Yeah.
Does Turning Point have an agenda, program, a set of events that they sponsor? Do they have?
Events for high school students?
Yeah. Do they have a?
Not yet, but I've talked to now, I don't know, I gather in Dallas County, I've asked Susan, you know, if they have an engagement committee, or what's that? They don't even have an engagement committee, okay? Harris County has an engagement committee. I'm not that happy with it, okay? So I called the head of the engagement committee. They focus I mean, he's black, and he focuses on black stuff because that's what he does, right? And they used to have Hispanic personally, but they never did anything. You know it. You know Roy, right? You know what he did. So, their outreach is a little bit spotty. What do they focus on? Well, we'll go to the air show, you know? No, we did that. We'll go to the Juneteenth celebration, July 4th celebration. I don't think, you know, this holiday, we have a table and pass out all of Maggie's information, they're gonna take it home and maybe glance at it and throw it away. No, we need day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month connection with the high school students, I think.
Yeah, I agree, you have a really good idea, but
Alan, we got a volunteer in Houston too.
no. I mean, to start from scratch to do this is just a monument.
I know.
Okay, I have a question. I do not mean to be negative. That is not my nature. But we need to be careful of what high school students we bring in. Is there a form, a questionnaire? What do you believe? And the reason I say this is I've worked with some in San Antonio, and some of them are totally ignorant. They're immature. One of them was telling me that Mitt Romney should have been our president. And this is some Republican kid. And I said, why do you think that? Oh, he was the greatest man, and he should have beat Trump, and he didn't run against Trump. Okay, so he didn't know what he was talking about. But he was the president of Republican something in his high school. And that really alarmed me. Another group I was talking to, supposedly Republicans. One young man was talking about how great socialism is and how we ought to open up our minds to it.
He was Republican.
Oh, Republican, okay? And so I asked, well, what do you think about Venezuela? And he said, what's Venezuela? So,
Is that street?
see, this is my concern. If we bring in a whole bunch of young idiots, and I'm not trying to be mean, but you're a young man, surely you
I'll just say
know
we
the
need to hear
difference
from
between
him.
Republican and Democrat. We've got to be careful, because I don't want to be breeding a whole bunch of young people who are pro-socialist or don't know anything. But to them, it's a fun thing to get together and eat pizza, and it's something to do.
I think the app that I've seen from Turning Point does address some of those things. There is kind of a questionnaire application sort of thing. I think,
Well, so believe it or not, I know a little bit about the kind of messaging that's going to young voters. Close to high school and and I will tell you, in Amarillo, we tried for about 2 years. I say we tried, really it was me and some volunteers I dragged along, kicking and screaming. We tried for 2 years unsuccessfully to set up these high school Republican chapters in Amarillo. And we just unsuccessfully spun our wheels on it. And one of the biggest issues that we have is we couldn't retain anybody to actually want to keep coming back. And so the first thing is you're gonna have to figure out retention and getting kids to come to the meetings with the pizza and with things like that. That's great to get them to come to a few meetings, but then they just stop showing up, especially if you want to keep them year over year. You're gonna have to figure out them, and that's gonna be a little easier said than done. The other thing is you simply got to get these county chairs to be involved with these groups too. Because we had no help from the county chairs in Amarillo when we were trying to do this. We reached out to them, we didn't hear anything. And because of that, we didn't get connected to the local activists and party. I was a young guy, I was 15 or 16 when we tried to do this, so I didn't know as many people in the party now, or as I did then, as I do now. And so we didn't really have the resources to go and, get connected to people that they didn't be hearing from. And so it just kind of died on the vine. So you're going to have to figure out a way to kind of remedy some of those issues. Because if you don't get people to keep coming to those organizations year over year, and you don't have the support to keep the organization running, it's not going to work.
That's where I think it's hard. As far as I'm hearing you, it's not our mission here or discussion to try to start anything, but to support those that are already doing that with sponsorships or speakers or things.
the mission, if you want to call it, today meeting is open the lines of communication. Try to figure out what the issues are, and then between now and the next meeting, maybe we can.
I like the idea of inviting them to a Lincoln Day dinner and sponsoring your table and having them there to have fun and listen, just to get the idea of what you're not a bunch of old fuddy-duddies, you know, we like to have fun too, you know.
You know, I like that, and I think the other thing that we can talk about here is how to connect these high school organizations as students are starting to kind of transition out of high school going to college, how to connect them to those college organizations. Because there's that divide where people leave their high school clubs and they don't have access to those for college. And so we don't need to run those clubs, but if we can kind of help guide them where they need to go.
But whether we're partnering with Turning Point or we just know who they are, certainly I think that they have strong presence in clubs on campus, on a lot of campuses around. And that would be an easy list, I think, to get and be able to hire a high school student. To your point, you know, of trying to get support from your county chair, you know, we've got good precinct chairs and we've got bad precinct chairs.
Yes.
We've got good county chairs and we've got bad county chairs, right? In my county, we deal with this problem of apathy among the precinct chairs. And I keep trying to tell the county chair, look, well, how can we fire them? You can't, you know that. But what you can do, that county chair can do, is appoint a committee in that precinct, that's your target precinct, and say, you having trouble turning out voters? Okay. Roland, you are now in charge of voter turnout in precinct 95. County chair has that power, okay? And then guess what? If they're successful, then that person is likely to run in primary for the precinct chair. Or maybe they're just happy just doing what they're doing. But there are solutions to these things. And, you know, if you're in a county that has an unresponsive county chair, all you have to do is get a meeting with that county chair and say, hey, I'd like to set up a committee of such and such. What do you think? Or whatever. It's not as easy as it sounds, you know, but
It's work.
that's just one idea, you know, off the head. You know, so look at the next page, page 5.
I will say, as we do that, we turn to that, Turning Point is a good idea. Turning Point was very active as volunteers in our district during the elections. They got out, they would walk in, they did a lot of stuff in Hayes County. So I thought that was, there's a lot of benefit, but this is at the collegiate level. Because they're a little bit more interested in that. And high schoolers, you know, you're still high school football and prom and all that, you know, all that stuff is still
They're just thinking
the
of
same
girls
time.
and fun.
Yeah, the hormones are still running, raging and all that, so pizza's still good, and Lincoln Day, all that is nice. But college level, I think that's where you get the volunteers, and that's where there's a little bit more serious discussion about what it really means.
That is true, because they're getting older, but we
Paying
still need
taxes.
to.
People online, I think.
Oh,
We still need to reach our high school students. We need to lean them in and just get them in there as soon as possible before they're indoctrinated. At least if we put the conservative ideals in them, where they listen, they can counter whenever they reach the liberal professors, or at least know what to ask, not ask questions.
Now, to your point about the continuity of members, I did it with Steve Mysterio last night, and he started Young Conservatives in Texas. And he said, Howard, you're going to have to understand that these kids are not going to be there forever. You're lucky if you get them for 2 years. So we have to understand that. But if we can teach them, you know, if we have a syllabus of, you know, what needs to happen over the course of a year's chapter meetings, and they get, you know, exposed to, you know, something like Great Review, or, you know, just maybe it's David Martin stuff, or Turning Point stuff. I'm sure they've got a whole curriculum. If these are designed, you know, to achieve something in the short time we have them, then maybe that was it.
Are you familiar with junior achievement? Are you familiar with junior achievement?
Junior achievement is a great idea.
See, they have a model that goes to high schools to teach them economics. We can use this model to teach them Republican ideas.
It's an entrepreneurial model. I have friends that have been mentors for junior achievement, sounds like you have been too. Maybe you can have a combined meeting, okay? First is the the conservative part of the junior achievement. I don't know, the meetings just kind of last long in the junior achievement, might be too much. But those are certainly kids, you know, they're entrepreneurial, they're studying entrepreneurial principles, they're learning finance, they're learning manufacturing, all that sort of stuff. So they aren't on my list, but believe me, I'm going to put them on there. So those are the kind of ideas, you know, that we can develop here today or, you know, over the next month or two as you think about some of this stuff. But just take a look at page 5 real quick. This is something that I built for my precinct. This is my precinct. I said, okay, I mean, I promised, or at least offered, the ability. Hold on a second. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So I have mentioned the ability to provide voter information in these high schools. And so what I did, I went to my own database, and this page 5 is page 1 of 7 in my precinct. My precinct has about 3,500 voters, so I didn't think you need to see all my voters. So this is just the idea. On that page, I profiled, the sort was all hard R's, no soft R's, just hard R's. In my precinct, 3,500 voters within an age bracket of 35 to 55. Those people ought to be, you know, if they have a family, they're likely to have high school students now or in the future. And there are 313 on my 7 pages. Now, if a recruiter, whether it's Turning Point or Young Poets of Texas or whatever it is, we ought to be able to provide that kind of support to them, work with them, and offer our facilitation and assistance, those kinds of things. That's what I think we can bring to the table, whether we're running meetings or not, or whether we control the curriculum or not, or whether we ever meet any of these students or not.
I wanted to ask, how would you get into each high school? Who would you call, the principal, and ask permission to maybe meet with the high school students?
I tried that, you know, last weekend because the principal of Concordia Lutheran was there, and I said, hey, I've got this great idea. So I know there's resistance, you know, to political stuff in high school. How hard would it be to set up, you know, Republicans of Texas kind of impossible? Okay, so in cases like that, if you look at the Turning Point model, they say, okay, you can either meet on campus if you get reception on campus, like at Bel Air High School, which is an affluent sort of part of Houston. They have, I think, an on-campus presence. They meet either before school, after school, whatever. But if you can't do that, then they have something, I forget what they call it, I think it's in the paperwork here, but they meet off campus, and they call themselves I think they call them a hub of some kind. So, and sometimes you would a hub, if you can't get, you know, enough kids out of one high school, maybe you can hub 2 or 3 high schools. You know?
So can you send a flyer to a high school and ask them to advertise it, whether posting it on the wall or whatever? And then as students show up wherever, we ask, do you believe this, then you must be a Republican. You know, get them to think, and they may walk out and say, no, I don't believe any of this. I love socialism.
Well, you know,
I guess I'm trying to vet them before we spend a lot of time on it.
yeah, well, there are questionnaires like that, and I have a friend that's working on getting me one, that approach the questionnaire generically. It's not from the Republican Party. So, what, do you believe this? Yes or no, or do you believe this or this? Believe this or this? Believe this or this? And then you give them a conservatism score, you know, or a score, you know, where they stand on the spectrum. And we've heard many stories of Democrats fill those out, and then they really think like Republicans, but they just look like Democrats, right? So yeah, I think it's unlikely that high school principal or school district superintendent is going to let us in just because we ask, you know. You have to find a back door. You're going to have to find what they try to do, I think, is find a sponsor first, a willing teacher who's willing to take the risk of all the abuse that they're going to take. Sometimes that works, has worked. Often it doesn't. And so, then you might be left with just parents having an in-home session or some sort of kind of, group meeting and that sort of thing.
I think it's kind of like what Thomas is saying, that might be an effort and utility.
Yeah.
But I do think there is definitely some merit to reinforcing existing, Turning Point or whatever groups that are successful, because they're gonna need continued support and new ideas and new fun stuff. And I think that would be much more beneficial. If other high schools see something blossoming, maybe they would like that too, and it opens it up.
From the beginning, I expected pushback, a difficulty getting into the high school, but I'm very encouraged, the Turning Point has 26 chapters. And I don't think they've been at it that long. So,
I'm wondering if they even meet on campus.
whatever they're doing right, but I think, Cheryl was first here.
Yeah, when we started ours many years ago, it was Republican Women of Yoakum area, which we represent 3 counties, DeWitt, Gonzales, and Milwaukee County. And what we did with the 3 counties is, first of all, we had to find a sponsor or 2, and it wound up being parents of kids in high school, which is a great idea, except for when your kids graduate, they kind of lose interest. So you gotta go beyond that, and you've gotta make sure that from the very beginning, you get a freshman parent to agree to be the assistant, so that it continues. But we did not have it through the schools. Our schools, even though we're a little county and we've got, in those 3 counties, we have probably 12 high schools, private and public. They wouldn't let us put stuff out at the schools. So it was a matter of word of mouth. And we wound up with about 100 students for 4 years. I mean, it was not a small thing for a little group of counties like us. So it's needed, it's wanted, it's just, if Turning Point is doing it, don't recreate the wheel. Figure out from them. Because high school Republicans, like I said, I just got a text from our past sponsor. She said they had no help whatsoever. They called, they emailed, it went into never land with high school Republican Texas. So.
Thank you, Cheryl. Just a second, and also, just as continuity point, I think it was clear to me that in talking to the people that had been associated with clubs, that you need some kind of incentive program, a system, or a rating program for the kids, and you're going to offer, scholarships or trips or, recognition of some kind. And so I'm thinking that for these stories about the seniors graduated, nobody came behind them. So one of the recruiting gold stars, I guess, would be, okay, you're a senior now, you get a gold star for recruiting a junior. Okay, you're a junior, you get a gold star for recruiting a sophomore, like that, and try to perpetuate some sort of continuity. Did you have a question?
Quick comment. I think what you're proposing is very good.
I feel a butt coming on.
No, I'm just going to give you an example of something else. I was invited by a government teacher for several years in a row to come in and make a presentation in this class. That's a mixed class. It's obviously there's conservative kids in there, liberal kids in there, and I was asked to present the whole election process, how you become a candidate, go from the primary, go from the general election, all that kind of stuff. And I would start out making it clear that I'm a Republican and I'm a Republican. This guy didn't want to watch the presentation a little bit further. But I told him, so I know how we do it. I don't know how the Democrats do it. They do the same as we do, but that's not the point. I don't want them to know what I was. But as part of the discussion, part of the progress, they would ask other questions. They clearly were partisan questions. And I had no option but to answer the questions. But I would go the whole class and they would keep asking questions. And you would see kids that were interested in understanding, and then you'd see other kids that all of a sudden, wake up a little bit. So, I think the vetting is important if you're going to have regular meetings. But I also think that if you get even a some kids in there, they're going to learn, they're going to, because they ask about taxes, and I used to work taxes, and I thought about, well, it's not about your grades, and I know you guys have all heard this. If you earn an A, why don't you give part of your grade to somebody who's getting a C, so both of you guys have B's? And they understand that. I said, well, that's what taxes is. You make a bunch of money, they take it away, and people don't work, is that what you guys want to do? And they react to that because it's something they can understand.
Yes.
Okay, and I didn't talk about party, but they figure it out. So what you're proposing, I think, is great. And I think it's this big. If we can just get into the classrooms and do those presentations, or whatever it means, even on turnover, you get a couple messages across, and some kids never forget that thought.
I think that's right. I think that these kids are hungry for information. That's why they're in school anyway. And the young minds full of mush, I think, respond when they're told the right story. Let's see, you said something I wanted to, maybe the question.
Just had a thought. What about using community centers or libraries, or I know Murphy has a big community center. They're always looking for instructors on things. And so now I'm thinking I'm going to go ask them, what if I offer a course in this, that, or the other?
Right.
So that's an option.
Yeah, finding, free locations and meals and training materials, I think is an issue. And so one thing I would point out that I'm planning to do, and Scott, is to try to find some funding for this. There are donor organizations who say they care about youth. I'm going to put them to the test. Okay? How serious are you, Thomas?
Well, something else I'll kind of say on the community center issue that just got mentioned is, a lot of educators, and this is terrible to say, but it's true, there's a lot of progressive and liberal educators out there who, they're not super excited about talking.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Yes, they're not super excited about talking to, conservatives. And so, the other thing is, whenever you have people who are kind of receptive, maybe having those political conversations on high school campuses, they're really excited, thinking it's still the 1950s. We're all going to get together and we're going to say the pledge and we're going to talk about the Constitution. But they get kind of hesitant whenever you start talking about how politically charged a lot of the conversations are now. And there's things that they don't want on campus, like, conversations about the really hard issues that people don't want to talk about. Like, they don't want to talk about, the Heartbeat Act on high school campuses and things like that. And so, I do think a lot of it's going to have to be off campus, so you're going to have to find some off-campus partners if you want to make something like this work.
I don't really care about the venue. If we have to meet off campus, that's fine. But Karen Marshall told me there are problems with that, because it's not convenient to do it in the morning or after school, and they've got to get transportation. And she's seeing a lot of falling away. So one thing I was going to say in response to the Alpha deal about kids wanting information and responding to information is, I think we have to realize that their parents are a lot of their parents are just as uninformed as they are. Okay, so you can see on page 6, this is a flyer for that sporting place I'm talking about. This is the one that raised $75,000. I think it can be replicated anywhere. The more rural the county is, the better. So this page 7 is just a template from an old high school Republicans from Texas that comes from the last publication was 2012. I don't really think they exist or any big numbers, but this is just sort of an executive summary. These first 3 pages are sort of an executive summary of the program that they used. You can read that at your leisure and see if you find any interesting stuff in there. But the series of pages that begin with 8 is a program that one of my precinct chairs formatted a year ago and tried to get implemented in Harris County. We didn't have any luck, but it is called Harris County Republican Party High School Republican Program. It doesn't exist, but you can kind of see The organizational skills of this author here, page 8D, identifies the schools, a lot of information about the schools. 8E is a sort of a heat map or a map of all high schools. Where are they in Harris County? And then 8F is where we took the centroid of the high school, the GPS vocational high school, and then the centroid of all the precincts in Harris County, and associated the ones that were within a certain radius. I don't know if it was 2 miles, 3 miles, or 5 miles, but that's a sort of a centroid map of how many. And then you can see, if you go back to page 12, or page L, I guess, 8L, and this is the end of my presentation, mercifully. This is a result, again, it's just the first page, but you can see for Aldine High School, we've identified, based on this centroid analysis, 5 or 6 precincts that can support that high school. So there may be one precinct chair, like we saw on the previous list, or there may be 2 or 3 or half a dozen, that could all share in the sort of mentorship for this group. Or one could be the location manager, one could be the concierge, find the food, whatever. But that's what I've learned so far, and I think, if I were going to issue a challenge, I guess the first thing I think we would need to do is try to find a person of contact who would be willing to follow up on this program in their counties. Whether that's the county chair, or an engagement committee like in Harris County, or Alma Jackson in San Antonio, or whatever. We need to identify somebody. Is there anybody that's going to help with this program? Take it on. Do they have or if they're not willing or able to commit to that sort of time, is it also going to help us in El Paso County? As he walks out the door. So anyway, that's what I think we have to do is find a contact point, and then we don't really have to identify who we're going to work with, but we need to identify the options. Is it Turning Point? Is it something else? Is it something we want to do ourselves? When I talked to Steve Ministeri about this last night, he sort of had a selfish perspective, I think. Not that that's bad, I'm not criticizing, but he started a Young Conservative Republicans of Texas. He supported it with paid staff on RPT. We don't have that, He's offered to meet with us and help find options to fund this effort. So I don't know if that means $10, 10,000, or 10 million, But I think it'd be worth if we have. I'd like to get a representative from every one of the major metropolitan counties and set up a meeting with Steve and just see where that goes. Yeah.
So we're talking about the options and everything on how we're going to do this. In these, especially rural counties, where there's not a college, there's not a university, there's not anyone who's even got any kind of involvement at all with Turning Point or something like that, how exactly are we going to work to get these organizations going with those communities?
I don't know. Cheryl said that in Lavaca County, she sort of coalesced 3 counties. And now they have 2 affiliate clubs within that general area?
2 Republican women's clubs.
Yeah.
Well, actually, within Lavaca County, within the greater area, we've probably got 4.
Now, as far as affiliate clubs go, I've talked to Tina Gibson. I think you know Tina, don't you, Dale? Yeah. So Tina is the president of something called Greater Houston Council. If you don't know what that is, you know that TFRW has, everyone knows what TFRW is. TFRW has about 70 chapters. And in the Houston area, it's not just Harris County, I mean, it goes to Fort Bend and Montgomery County and all of this. I think the number is 30 associated clubs. Well, that's pretty coincidental, you know. Turning Point has 26 clubs, and Tina had said, yes, she would help us present this to her clubs and see how many of them might be willing to adopt a high school. And so there are various places around. If we could accomplish just that and double the number of chapters, whether they're working through Turning Point or with us or whatever, just through the affiliate clubs angle. Now that's just one, you know. What about the veterans clubs? Okay, would they be willing to adopt a school for? Now they tend to be nonpartisan.
They're nonpartisan,
yeah.
for sure.
Right.
But if it's an educational, you know, so they're nonpartisan, that's something that, you know, as I speak to them, I'm not speaking as, you know, an SREC member, I'm speaking to them as a veteran, Mike Monreal, who's involved in legislation and my interest in it, and I want them to be informed. You know, so if it's from a perspective of education, in our government, in our constitution, and things like that, then I think that there would be interest and support. You know, and even a veteran awareness, they would be doing that, because that's part of the Constitution, right? That's what we think about. So I think there's a link there, but you just have to make sure that we have a proper baseline of where we're talking.
Right, and there's a risk there, you know, because you get emotional Republicans who want to make their point and everything, but like Adolfo was saying, he was invited to a nonpartisan group. He went in, he was told full disclosure, and he was able to, you know, escape that issue. I don't think it's going to work if we go in being the drum for Donald Trump, you know. So, but so anyway.
I'm wondering if perhaps two different, one for rural counties. One for rural counties, because they already have ag groups and so on, they already tend to be conservative, and maybe there are ways to work within those groups just to encourage Republican principles identified with the party. And then maybe we need a different approach for urban areas, because they have different distractions that pull them away from, and that's where you find transgender things going on, drag queen shows. I haven't seen too many of those in urban counties, so maybe we need to find ways to approach that there.
I think if we can get this started in the larger counties first, that's the first step. Get it going so we'll have a model. But you are correct about different counties have different issues. I face that as a precinct chairman. There's parts in San Antonio that are predominantly Democrat, and there are a lot of gang members live in those areas, so the block walking was not effective there. It wasn't safe at all. So I get that idea. But I sort of think we need to stick with Turning Point and learn. Don't reinvent it, but at the same time, this would be excellent if we could get it going, Howard. So I guess what we first need to do is find out how many are willing to put in the time in their own counties to head something like this up.
So, well, Maggie, you're from Collin County. Can you think of anybody that would take on Collin County?
Other than me.
No?
Not off the top of my head, because the people I know who are doers are stretched about as thin as they can be.
One thing that Steve Minister told me last night, he said, now Howard, and he said, don't think you're going to set up one of these clubs and you're going to run it. They don't want to hear from you. They don't want to hear from me. They don't want to hear from anybody in this room except maybe Thomas.
Probably not me.
So, but the point is, you know, to recruit a young 20-something that's on fire, and the best route I can think of is to their parents, or sort of the parents, you know. Maybe we find them, maybe we don't, you know, so what, we're on.
Next step, You need a next step.
Yeah, what is our next step, Cheryl?
Your next step, Howard, I would say, you and Ellen need to get together and come up, stop. You need to come up with an email that you can send to all the SRECs for them to send it out to their counties' chairs and ask, give them a little bit of information, not this big packet, their eyes will roll back in their heads, but a little bit of information and ask the question, do you think you could find somebody who might be interested in taking this on in your county? Because we can talk for days without the next step, and this needs to be the next step.
We need those who can put the time into this. This is gonna be a very time-consuming
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, that person would have to have the time and the inclination and the knowledge, so, one other thing, just on it, yeah, Ron.
Well, I think that's a good idea. I think you just turn volunteers loose without a detailed set of plans and organization and how to do it and who's gonna do it and all that detail. I think it would be like,
Be a mess.
it would be a mess because it's like getting enthusiastic precinct chairs to step up to the job like we have in our county. And then it just goes kaput because they have nothing to support their efforts. So, I mean, I like the idea, but I mean, just blast it out to everyone without all that stuff behind it. I think it might be insane.
Yeah, sort of like a duty list. If you're interested, you have to do this, 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 and this. Simple bullet points.
Duty list, are you military? I didn't know.
My husband thought I was.
Call the boss.
That's second.
No, that's what we need to do. Cheryl's idea about sending out an email to all the SRC members is great. Identify who the county chairmen are in each of those.
She wanted all county chairs.
All county chairs, and let them know that this is an idea that we are playing with, and it's a great idea. If you can get the workers to get it off the ground, but they need specific duties, ideas of how they can get it going. That is a very good
In
thing.
your report tomorrow, maybe you can say that we're planning to send that out, and maybe the SREC members, if they have a heart for this sort of issue, if they think they can identify, willing people.
To contact Howard.
Yeah, well, you're the chairman, I mean, no, they contact
This
you.
is your baby. I didn't have this baby.
Howard, would it make any sense to have some better metrics on what is the target number of kids in high school?
So Roland wants to know about target opportunities and better metrics, and you want it for the whole state, is that what you want?
Or a sample.
Yeah. Well, I thought that's kind of what I had with the Harris County, and we can develop that, for any other county. They can give us the detailed information on their precinct here. We can do both at the same time.
Does Turning Point have any of that information?
I don't know. They've been a little bit close to the vest on some things. Okay.
Have you talked to Turning Point about what they're doing at the collegiate level?
No.
Okay. Because I see a huge opportunity at the collegiate level. I have 5 kids in college, 5 grandkids.
Alma, I think we found our college subcommittee member here.
Yeah, but, I mean, they don't know if they're registered, where to register, when to vote, where to vote, how to vote. I mean, it's unbelievable, and these kids are interested, they are really conservative.
I believe there's a
Opportunities we're missing, is just getting all these kids that are in college to vote.
I think there's a lot of kids out there in the desert waiting for information, and we're not getting it. So.
So what's Turning Point, have they solved that?
What's Turning Point? I don't know. I think they have them. They've tried to, but they're being kicked off campus.
You're talking about a target opportunity. I mean, I know it's laudable to have the idea.
I just can't shut him up.
It's laudable to have the idea of teaching all these young kids where they should be thinking and what they should be thinking. But what about those that are already thinking right and just getting the vote? So particularly the next go around, that will be extremely important.
From what I understand, that's really Turning Point's mission. So that's why I thought that we don't need to recreate that, reinvent the wheel. We should support them because you're right. They do need speakers, and they do need sponsors, and they do need, you know, stuff like that is where I think, you know, we may be able to, information, education, we may be able to provide them and reinforce that rather than
Connecting the dots.
I agree, and I tell you, the connecting of the dots is huge, because like I said, the Turning Point Group in San Marcos, in Hayes County, they provided a ton of volunteers and worked very well with the county, county chair and all that, and I saw it happen right from my eyes. I was like, wow, that's great to see that interaction between them. They're very active. But I'm in a county, I'm in a district like Green said, I'm mostly rural. I think we've got Texas Lutheran, and Texas International, which has actually a chapter there that we support. Maybe about 8 people, but that's still better than nothing in the state of Texas. So.
Well, I think that's a great idea. I mean, if we could find out what they need and help them get it, whether it's just a support group or information or a piece on Friday night, I don't know.
Maybe want to know what the SREC is, what they do, and just informative.
Well, to go on Mike's point too, he's talking about talking to Turning Point, seeing what they've already done, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We might even talk to them about if they figured out some way to bridge the rural urban gap we're talking about. Because we had this conversation when they were trying to start a YCT chapter at West Texas A&M in the pandemic. They were talking about all these engagement ideas. And some of them we knew were just not going to work at that particular campus. And the conversation we had was the things that work at UT Austin are not necessarily the same things that work at West Texas A&M or UT Permian. And so I do think if there is some way, maybe they've already outlined it, on how to address the needs specifically of those rural communities when they're starting these high school public groups, that might be something we should look into to address that with our SRECs and county chairs.
Like at Texas A&M, we can have the A&M conservatives calf roping contest, those kind of things.
I wonder how many of us have SREC newsletters. So one of the things I will do when I go home, in my newsletter, I will be asking all the people I send that to, are any of you interested in helping reach the next generation? Now, I bet I'll get quite a few people who are interested. I just need a place to plug them in. I don't want to ask and then have nowhere for them to go.
Well, that's one.
Maybe you can hold a meeting and explain what this is and find out who's interested. That's a pretty good idea.
And that's one reason I was elected to the SREC, because the previous committee man and committee woman did not communicate, with the counties. Now, and other SRECs totally contained in Harris County, but I'm part of 18, and we've got 18 counties. So that makes the communication difficult. And the first thing that Cheryl and I did is summarize the results of the last meeting and put that out to our county chairs. And then they in turn send it out to their precinct chairs. Same principle could apply here for anybody that was a member of the club or whatever. So, before we leave, I'd like to say one other thing.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left and we've got to adjourn. What you're going to do is come up with an email, correct? This is what I'm going to report to all of SREC tomorrow.
Okay?
And on that email, you're going to explain in a very short paragraph what you're trying to do. And you're also going to list what is expected of those who can step up. So they don't walk in with blind. Roman had a great idea about that. They need to know exactly what's expected and find out who is interested and who might be able to do that for us.
And I'll give Roman and Dale editorial license over my draft. So the other thing I wanted to mention is, in the last meeting, Maggie had such great ideas about what she does for engagement. And I was hoping, I'm kind of new to engagement. I know what it is. I sort of 6 months ago I couldn't spell engagement, now I'm R1, kind of thing. So, but if we could get kind of a best practices suggestions from everybody on the committee. I mean, Mike has some great ideas on veterans. Maggie has, Years, decades, is that saying too much, Maggie? You know, Dale knows what he does in Fort Bend County, and you've got tons of experience, Alma, and I just hear stuff through the grapevine. So, I'd like for us to all think about, what the best practices should be, and then maybe we can, talk about that in our next Zoom meeting or the next SREC meeting, whatever we do.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? We just have a couple minutes.
I'll see if I can arrange something like that.
Well, in that case, the meeting is adjourned. We've got a lot to think about. Thank you, Howard.
Okay, you're welcome. Teresa, you're late, number, you missed it.
A lot of discussion, a lot of information.
Teresa Thomas back here is one of the hardest working volunteers and activists that we have in Harris County. She almost single-handedly won the school board election at Cy-Fair, and the water board, and ESD 9. She's a superstar.
Thank you, Teresa.
Dig it?
Thank you for your.
Right. I had grandiose ideas. Well, Mike was too, and he had a fun one here, so. We'll do a little more planning and do a little more nice idea. Sounds like high school Republicans meeting today.
I don't know if they have a website. Used it outside.
You know where? Well, that's the thing we do in Houston, and we thought it would resonate, and it did. It really did. Not enough. Well, I know that, except for TV, you can't fault our message volume in the county commissioner's race, in the county judge's race. And, well, she was close, she was like 2%. She made it 1.5. And, $15 million. Why didn't people get more? Why don't they hear that Houston is the word of capital of America? Why don't they hear about that? I guess they'd rather be killed by a black man. A black man would rather be killed by a black man than vote for